Hello. I've been reading The Witches, and I was just thinking about what happened the last time I read. And I remember that William and Mary, the two white mice that are pets belonging to Luke, got away from Luke. And they were brought to the attention of the Grand High Witch. And all the witches were shouting, "Mice, mice." So I am going to carry on, and I wonder what's going to happen to poor William and Mary. I'm thinking that the Grand High Witch is not impressed, and I think those poor little mice are in trouble. The audience became silent and sat down. "These mice have nothing to do with me," she shouted. "These mice are pet mice. These mice are quite obviously belonging to some repellent little child in the hotel. A boy it will be for a certainty, because girls are not keeping pet mice." Actually, I used to like mice when I was a little girl, so... "A boy!" cried the witches. "A filthy, smelly little boy. We'll swipe him. We'll swizzle him. We'll have his tripes for breakfast." "Silence!" shouted the Grand High Witch, raising her hands. "You know perfectly well you must do nothing to draw attention to yourselves while you are living in the hotel. Let us by all means get rid of this evil-smelling little squirt, but we first must do it as quietly as possible, for are we not all of us the most respectable ladies of the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children? What do you suggest then, O brainy one?" They cried out. "How shall we dispose of this small pile of filth?" They're talking about me, I thought. These females are actually talking about how to kill me. I began to sweat. "Whoever he is not important," announced the Grand High Witch. "Leave him to me. I shall smell him out and turn him into a mackerel and have him dished up for supper." "Bravo!" cried the witches. "Cut off his head and chop off his tail and fry him in hot butter." You can imagine that none of this was making me feel very comfortable. William and Mary were still running around on the platform, and I saw the Grand High Witch aim a swift running kick at William. She caught him right on the point of her toe and sent him flying. She did the same to Mary. Her aim was extraordinary. She would have made a great football player. Both mice crashed against the wall, and for a few moments they lay stunned. Then they got to their feet and scampered away. Ooh, there's a picture of the Grand High Witch kicking poor William or Mary. Poor little mice. "Attention again!" the Grand High Witch was shouting. "I will now give to you the recipe for concocting Formula 86 Delayed Action Mouse Maker. Get out pencils and paper." Handbags were opened all over the room, and notebooks were fished out. "Give us the recipe, O brainy one!" cried the audience impatiently. "Tell us the secret." "First," said the Grand High Witch, "I had to find something that would cause the children to become very small very quickly." "And what was that?" cried the audience. "That part was simple," said the Grand High Witch. "All you have to do, if you are wishing to make a child very small, is to look at him through the wrong end of a telescope." "She's a wonder," cried the audience. "Who else would have thought of a thing like that?" "So, you take the wrong end of a telescope," continued the Grand High Witch, "and you boil it until it gets soft." "How long does that take?" they asked her. 21 hours of boiling," answered the Grand High Witch. "And while this is going on, You take exactly 45 brown mice and you chop off their tails with a carving knife and you fry the tails in hair oil until they are nice and crisp. What do we do with all those mice who have had their tails chopped off? Asked the audience. You simmer them in frog juice for 1 hour, came the answer. But listen to me. So far, I have only given you the easy part of the recipe. The really difficult problem is to put in something that will have a genuine delayed action result. Something that can be eaten by children on a certain day, but which will not start working on them until 9 o'clock the next morning when they arrive at school. Well, there's a picture of the witches taking notes. And I see the mouse tails. Oh, frog juice. What did you come up with, oh brainy one? They called out. Tell us the great secret. The secret, announced the Grand High Witch triumphantly, is an alarm clock. An alarm clock, they cried. It's a stroke of genius. Of course it is, said the Grand High Witch. You can set a 24-hour alarm clock today, and at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow, it will go off. But we will need 5 million alarm clocks, cried the audience. We will need one for each child. Idiots, shouted the Grand High Witch. If you are wanting a steak, you do not cook the whole cow. It is the same with alarm clocks. 1 clock will make enough for 1,000 children. Here is what you do. You set your alarm clock to go off at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then you roast it in the oven until it is crisp and tender. Are you writing this down? We are, your grandness, we are, they cried. Next, said the Grand High Witch, you take your boiled telescope and your fried mouse tails and your cooked mice and your roasted alarm clock, and all together you put them into the mixer. Then you mix them at full speed. This will give you a nice thick paste. While the mixer is still mixing, you must add to it the yolk of 1 Gruntel's egg. A Gruntel's egg, cried the audience. We shall do that. Underneath all the clamor that was going on, I heard one witch in the back row saying to her neighbor, I'm getting a bit old to go bird's nesting. Those ruddy Gruntels always nest very high up. So you mix in the egg, the Grand High Witch went on, and one after the other you also mix in the following items. The claw of a crab cruncher, the beak of a blabber snitch, the snout of a grobble squirt, and the tongue of a cat springer. I trust you are not having any trouble finding those. None at all, they cried out. We will spear the blabber snitch and trap the crab cruncher and shoot the grobble squirt and catch the cat springer in his burrow. Excellent, said the Grand High Witch. Ah, and there are pictures of various things that have to go into this mixture. Yum, yum. When you have mixed everything together in the mixer, you will have a most marvelous looking green liquid. Put 1 drop, just 1 titchy droplet of this liquid into a chocolate or a sweet, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, the child who ate it will turn into a mouse in 26 seconds. But 1 word of warning, never increase the dose, never put more than 1 drop into each sweet or chocolate, and never give more than 1 sweet or chocolate to each child. An overdose of delayed action mouse maker will mess up the timing of the alarm clock and cause the child to turn into a mouse too early. A large overdose might even have an instant effect And you wouldn't want that, would you? You wouldn't want the children turning into mice right there in your sweet shops. That would give the game away. So be very careful. Do not overdose. Bruno Jenkins disappears. The Grand High Witch was starting to talk again. I am now going to prove to you, she said, that this recipe is working to perfection. You understand, of course, that you can set the alarm clock to go off at any time you like. It does not have to be 9 o'clock. So, yesterday, I am personally preparing a small quantity of the magic formula in order to give to you a public demonstration. But I am making one small change in the recipe. Before I am roasting the alarm clock, I'm setting it to go off, not at 9 o'clock the next morning, but at 3:30 the next afternoon, which means 3:30 this afternoon. And that, she said, glancing at her wristwatch, is in precisely 7 minutes. The audience of witches was listening intently, sensing that something dramatic was about to happen. So what am I doing yesterday with this magic liquid? Asked the Grand High Witch. I will tell you what I am doing. I am putting one droplet of it into a very squishy chocolate bar, and I am giving this bar to a repulsive, smelly little boy who is hanging around the lobby of the hotel. The Grand High Witch paused. The audience remained silent, waiting for her to go on. I watched this repulsive little brute gobbling up the squishy bar of chocolate, and when he had finished, I said to him, "Was it good?" He said it was great. So I said to him, "Would you like some more?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "I will give you 6 more chocolate bars like that if you will meet me in the ballroom of this hotel at 3:25 tomorrow afternoon." 6 bars, cried this greedy little swine. I'll be there. You bet I'll be there. So the stage is set, shouted the Grand High Witch. The proof of the pudding is about to begin. Do not forget that before I am roasting the alarm clock yesterday, I am setting it for 3:30 today. It is now. She glanced again at her watch. It is now exactly 25 minutes past 3, and the nasty little stinker, who will be turning into a mouse in 5 minutes' time, should at this very moment be standing outside the doors. And by gum, she was absolutely right. The boy, whoever he might be, was already rattling the door handle and banging on the doors with his fist. "Crack!" shouted the Grand High Witch. "Put on your wigs! Put on your gloves! Put on your shoes!" There was a great rustle and bustle of putting on wigs and gloves and shoes, and I saw the Grand High Witch herself reach for her face mask and put it on over that revolting face of hers. It was astonishing how that mask transformed her. All of a sudden, she became once again a rather pretty young lady. "Let me in!" came the boy's voice from behind the doors. "Where are those chocolate bars you promised me? I'm here to collect. Dish them out." "He is not only smelly, he is also greedy," said the Grand High Witch. "Remove the chains from the doors and let him come in." The extraordinary thing about the mask was that its lips moved quite naturally when she spoke. You really couldn't see that it was a mask at all. One of the witches leapt to her feet and unfastened the chains. She opened the 2 huge doors. Then I heard her saying, "Why, hello, little man. How lovely to see you. You have come for your chocolate bars, have you not? They are all ready for you. Do come in." A small boy wearing a white t-shirt and gray shorts and gym shoes entered the room. I recognized him at once. He was called Bruno Jenkins, and he was staying in the hotel with his parents. I didn't care for him. He was one of those boys who is always eating something whenever you meet him. Meet him in the hotel lobby, and he is stuffing sponge cake into his mouth. Pass him in the corridor, and he is fishing potato crisps out of a bag by the fistful. Catch sight of him in the hotel garden, and he is wolfing a dairy milk bar and has 2 more sticking out of his trouser pocket. What's more, Bruno never stopped boasting about how his father made more money than my father and that they owned 3 cars. But worse than that, yesterday morning, I had found him kneeling on the flagstones of the hotel terrace with a magnifying glass in his hand. There was a column of ants marching across one of the flagstones, and Bruno Jenkins was focusing the sun through his magnifying glass and roasting the ants one by one. I like watching them burn, he said. That's horrible, I cried. Stop doing that. Let's see you stop me, he said. At that point, I had pushed him with all my might, and he had crashed sideways onto the flagstones. His magnifying glass had splintered into many pieces, and he had leapt up, shrieking. My father is going to get you for this. Then he had run off, presumably to find his wealthy dad. That was the last time I had seen Bruno Jenkins, until now. I doubted very much that he was about to be turned into a mouse, although I must confess that I was secretly hoping it might happen. Either way, I didn't envy him being up there in front of all those witches. Darling boy, cooed the Grand High Witch from up on the platform, I have your chocolates all ready for you. Do come up here first and say hello to all these lovely ladies. Her voice was quite different now. It was soft and gentle and absolutely dripping with syrup. Bruno was looking a bit bewildered, but he allowed himself to be led up onto the platform where he stood beside the Grand High Witch and said, Okay, where are my 6 bars of chocolate? I saw the witch who had let him in quietly putting the chain back on the door handles. Bruno didn't notice this. He was too busy asking for his chocolate. The time is now 1 minute before 3:30, announced the Grand High Witch. What the heck's going on? Bruno asked. He wasn't frightened, but he wasn't looking exactly comfortable either. What is this? He said. Give me my chocolate. 30 seconds to go, cried the Grand High Witch, gripping Bruno by the arm. Bruno shook himself clear and stared at her. She stared back at him, smiling with the lips of her mask. Every witch in the audience was staring at Bruno. And there is a picture of Bruno here, being led to the front of the room. Well, I wonder if this magic potion is going to work. My goodness. It looks very interesting, but I should stop there and read some more later. I hope you have a wonderful day. Yes, and don't worry about Bruno. I'm sure he'll be fine. See you.